So good evening. Welcome to our little class about the Zohar. This is a not something I teach about all of the time because I'm not a mystic. And as we get to the last class and I explain some of the controversies, I'll explain why I have basically a negative inclination to Kabbalah. But it's obviously an interesting and important topic to look at. I have arranged sort of a short presentation and a short little text for us to look at. I think that my talking should take about 30 minutes or so. If you want to interrupt my talking and speak to me, that's fine. The best way to do it is to write a little thing into the chat box. And Debbie will be checking those and she will bring to my attention what sort of questions that you might have. So people are still coming in, but we will go ahead and start the presentation. Just sort of a show of hands here. Who here has read the Zohar? I know Naomi has. Any other bold anyone else want to confess to reading the Zohar?
I peeked at it.
You peeked at it. Did you feel a spark of mysticism when you opened it up?
Maybe, but a lot of it was over my head, honestly.
It's I love how we can be honest after all these years. That's really so. I will as I said, this is something that I don't do all the time. I don't think I've ever given a sermon, and I've been a rabbi now for a quarter of a century. That's a long time. I don't think I've ever given a sermon with a text from the Zohar was part of what we were dealing with. But that's it's a big world out there. It's a big world out there, and hopefully with these little lectures, we can understand a bit more of it. So this is switching to the allow. Debbie, could you just give me a thumbs up if the slideshow is coming up? Thank you. I'll make this bigger. So slideshow, play from the start. Introduction to the Zohar. I'm going to tell you how to find a Zohar, how if you come across a book and you're not sure whether it's a Zohar or not, you can tell it's a Zohar. Um, this first lecture is just going to be about what the heck this is, when does it come from, and where does it come from, and why it's important. And the second lecture, we're going to talk a bit about controversies. We're going to, there are many, people get very angry about the Zohar, and we're going to try to explain why people get so emotional about it. And in the third class, we're going to talk about the Zohar today, basically how we can relate to it. One of the paradoxes is that even though we think that the Zohar it might be this far out esoteric topic, and it is an esoteric work. In many ways, for people that aren't used to studying rabbinic texts, this is more accessible than the Talmud is to the English speaking readers. And so I think that there's really if you're interested in something that you can look at in English and not be totally puzzled by, the Zohar is actually a little bit easier for people that don't have the Hebrew or the Aramaic to understand than the Talmud is. And so that's an opportunity. That's an opportunity to have a Jewish text in your house. I do not. This is a picture of a traditional set of Zohar. I actually don't own a traditional set of Zohar. I never purchased. It's like one of the few. Usually, I buy the commentary works, but I always like to have a set of the original on the shelf. I've never purchased an original set of Zohar, but if you see when it's usually in 3 volumes like this. I do have 2 sets of Zohar in my office. So this is a little show and tell. If you're in my office and I'm not around for some reason, this is how you can find my copies of the Zohar. and you can put them to work for you. The first set is on the top shelf right over the computer. It's the blue and gold books on top of the shelf, and it's a set of about 20 books. Because this is not just the text of the Zohar itself, this is the Zohar and commentary. You can see here what the pages look like. It looks like any safer. You have like the text that you're reading at the top, and below there's some the commentaries. But I just don't have one set of Zohar. I have a second set of Zohar, and this is the Kabbalah Center Zohar, and I'll talk a little bit about this. It's a distinctive blue book with sort of like the red trim and sort of the red banners on it. And the reason that so the first set of Zohar I bought because I felt that I should have a set of Zohar with the commentaries. And so this version that I have is kind of the industry standard. This set of Zohar I did not purchase. This was a free set of Zohar, and the free set of Zohar came from a place called the Kabbalah Center, and you can look this up on the interwebs. The Kabbalah Center wants to give away copies of the Zohar. They don't anymore. I think they've run out. Now, if you ask for a free Zohar, they send you one of the 23 volumes. But back in the day, you could just write them and say, send me a set of Zohar. They would send you a set of Zohar because they wanted people to have these magical books on their shelves. So this is a little bit of what the Kabbalah Center writes about it. As you begin your spiritual work with the Zohar, simply scanning the pages allows you to pass over the words and letters. And this opens a direct connection to the divine spark hidden within each of us. The more you bring the Zohar into your life, the stronger your connection to the light becomes. You will jump higher than you've ever jumped before, and you will run faster. The Kabbalists tell us just being in the presence of these volumes creates an impenetrable shield of spiritual protection. So if you want an impenetrable shield of spiritual protection, you can sit in my office under this copy of the Zohar, scanning the letters. But yeah, I mean, even though you get this great shield by just sitting next to it, you can scan the letters. And scanning is what they call it when people that don't know how to read Hebrew or Aramaic just look at the letters and go on. This is a hugely beneficial next step, and that anyone can take at any time. The power is always there for all humanity, and it is here for you right now. And I don't know how anybody could turn down this opportunity. But when I saw that this was available for free, that I could take this book and maybe remove it from circulation before it hurt other people. I should take on the task of having this book. So that's the story of how I got my second set of the Zohar. So again, this is part of the presentation here is the presentation of Kabbalah. That Kabbalah has become very popular, and it's promoted to people that don't know Hebrew, that don't know rabbinics, that don't have other things. So the when and where, what is the timeline of the Kabbalah? Where does the Zohar fit in? And I'm going to give you just a very brief historical sketch. That the Jewish mysticism, which is it's not called in Hebrew, we call it sod. We call it the secret, but it has sort of a past path of development. The earliest example we have of the sod of mysticism is the mystical text from the rabbinic era, and these are the throne liturgies. These are the prayers that people would say before what they imagine that they're standing before the throne of God. And if you come to my shul, and by all means you should come to my shul, but we recite one of these mystical texts every time we do a service, and this is called Aleinu. This is throne mysticism. People imagining that they are in the presence of God on His throne. And these are the earliest examples of the sod or mysticism that we have. You might have heard of the Sefer Yetzirah, the book of creation. We could do a long class on this book as well. It's an amazing book, but this is a book of, and the focus of this is alphabet and number mysticism. And this appears around the year 500, somewhere 800 there. And then we have the next period, we go to Germany. And I'm going to show you a map of this in just a second. We have the old, in Germany, we have sort of the old Ashkenaz pietism. The old Ashkenazim are not the new Ashkenazim. The new Ashkenazim are the Ashkenazim after the old Ashkenazim are kicked out of Germany. But the old Ashkenazim, before they got kicked out of Germany after the Crusades, they had a form of mysticism. And it's then we get to this period of the Spanish Kabbalah slash the Zohar, which is around the year 1300. But that's not the end of the story. The story of Kabbalah continues. It goes back to Palestine as the Jews are kicked out of Spain, becomes Lurianic. And then in Poland and Ukraine, probably the latest iteration of Jewish mysticism emerges, which is Hasidism. And Hasidism is a going movement today. You can walk across the street. You can walk across the street and participate in this proud branch of Jewish mysticism. So if you think of it temporally, the Zohar, Spain, 1300. And if you look at it on a map, you can kind of like walk along the journey with this. The story obviously begins in Palestine, where we are from as a people. And from there, it moves to Byzantium and through Italy. And it is through Italy that the oldest communities in Germany are moved. The Jewish community migrates from Italy to Germany in around the year 900, around the year 1000. From Germany, these mystical teachings are spread to the south of France. And as the Christians take control of Spain in the Reconquista, these teachings move to Spain. And it's at this point where we have sort of the period of classic Kabbalah. Again, it's the hinge where everything comes together. And there's this crystallization of Jewish mysticism, which the Zohar is a part of, but then the whole thing is blown up. We are kicked out of Spain in 1492, and all of this is like it's like vomited across Europe. Everywhere the Jews are kicked out, we go. The mysticism, the Zohar, which now exists, goes to Italy, it goes to Palestine, and it goes to North Africa. And from Palestine and North Africa, it goes up ultimately into the new Ashkenazi area, where Hasidism is going to take root. So that's kind of the time, and that's kind of the geography. And so if you think of the Zohar where it is in history, it is a hinge. That it's the center between these older traditions which migrated through Europe to Spain. The Spanish Kabbalah is formed there, and then with the expulsion, it's ejected back into Europe, creating the various forms of Kabbalah that we observe today. And at the heart of this is this book that we call the Zohar. And we'll read a section of that and a little bit of that. If I had to define the Zohar on one foot, to give you sort of a little paragraph saying, well, this is what the Zohar is. The Zohar is a midrashic work. That's to say, it's an exegetical work on the Torah. It's a work that interprets the Torah. It's written in 1300 in Castile by a group of Kabbalists and mystics. It's written in Aramaic, which is a language that we preserve liturgically in the Kaddish. We preserve it in the one piece of the Zohar that we really recite in services today. If you hear Be'anarachetz, Velishme Kadisha, Kadisha Yakira, Ana Amartush Bechan. We say this at every Torah service, and this is from the Zohar. It's the most prominent piece of the Zohar that we recite. It is presented not as the work of Kabbalists in the 13th century, but it's presented as the teachings of Shimon ben Yochai, who is a rabbi that lived in the second century Palestine. And this was a guy that was a contemporary with Rabbi Akiva, with Rabbi Ishmael, all of the great rabbis. So when the school of mystics in Castile write the Zohar, they write it in Aramaic to make it look really old. And they say that this is really a second century work. So it's I don't know if the word for that is a forgery or a pseudograph, but it's a work that presents itself to be something that it obviously is. The Zohar allegorizes the Torah to the mystical teachings of its 14th century composers, and which they inherited from the schools of southern France. And that's to say that the Zohar is a running commentary on the Torah, and at every point it makes the connection between what is actually written in the Torah and the mystical teachings, showing that the mystical teachings flow from this and that they are one and the same. And so this is the Zohar on one foot, if I was just going to describe the Zohar. But the critical thing, and it's really the first controversy we have about the Zohar, is whether or not this is really written by Shimon ben Yochai. Because in the religious world, it is often accepted at face value. That's to say, religious Jews often believe that the Zohar was not written in 1300, but that the Zohar was written in the year 200. And so we have sort of a conundrum. We have this, we know the song from Sesame Street. One of these things is not like the other one. One of these things doesn't belong. That if you have a collection of rabbinic writings, in many parts of the religious world, the rabbinic writings include the Mishnah, the Tosefta, the Talmud, the halachic midrashim, but also the Zohar. And so you have one group of Jews that venerates the Zohar as on the same level as the Mishnah and the Talmud. And then you have everyone else that feels correctly that isn't the case. And by the way, this includes many Kabbalists. We'll talk about in the controversy. There are many Kabbalists that will acknowledge that the Zohar is not a rabbinic work, but will hold that it's of great spiritual importance anyway. But we do have the phenomenon of the veneration of the Rashbi, Shimon ben Yochai, who's presented as the writer of this. You might be aware of a little holiday called Lag BaOmer, which I avoid teaching about because I do the fire like everyone else, but the actual religious significance of Lag BaOmer in the religious world is that Lag BaOmer is the yort site of the Rashbi. It's the yort site of Shimon ben Yochai, the person that religious people wrote the Zohar. And so when they have the bonfires on Lag BaOmer, and they're venerating him in the same way that Catholics venerate their saints. That a bonfire, it comes from the word bone fire. It's the holy bones, the holy relics of our ancestors that are still producing heat and light through all of these things. And so again, from the very beginning, the Zohar is enraptured in this controversy. What is it, and what is the place that it has in our lives, and will it be on the final examination? In synagogue, I shared a couple weeks ago the basic moves of the Castilian Kabbalah, which is to say the basic innovation that the Zohar brings. And one way to think about mysticism is that mysticism is a way of de-philosophizing the Torah. It's a way of making the Torah less rational. From the very beginning of the Jewish world, there was a sense that there were philosophical portrayals of God in the Torah that were a problem. The main problem was that God has a body in the Torah. In the Bible, God walks around, he talks to people, he does things that seem to be philosophically impossible for God to do. And so in the early translations of the Torah out of Hebrew into Aramaic, into Greek, we've played down those problems. And another thing that we play down are the names of God. And this is not this passage. I mean, it could have been selected at random, but this is the first paragraph that we read this week in shul. And let me see how I'm doing on time here. I'm committed to not going crazy here. But there's a question in the chat. So the question in the chat was Moses de Leon a forger, claiming that he had found what he himself had written? That is the scholarly consensus. Moses de Leon is considered to be one of the main characters in the Castilian school of mystics. He seems to be he's the person who presents the Zohar. As you said, he found it. And the scholarly consensus is that he did write it himself, and that does constitute a forgery. It's very interesting that the question of forgery is only something that was definitively settled in the last century. Gershom Scholem, the great scholar of mysticism, felt that he was going to prove the antiquity of the Zohar, and that he was going to vindicate Moses de Leon, and he ended up proving that he was the forger. But yes, that is the main character. So if we read through the parsha this week, and now Pharaoh let the people go, and highlighting God did not lead them by the way of the land, for God said, so God saying God, and then the Lord. We have different conventions here of how to translate the names of God into English, but God and Lord are common nouns. In Hebrew, the words for God and Lord are proper nouns. They're names like Bill, Sue, or Greg. And so behind reading things as God or Lord, we have the proper names in Hebrew. So things that are translated God is the common noun translation of the proper noun Elohim. The common noun Lord is used for the proper name Yud He Vav He. And by putting them into common nouns, by not saying Elohim and Yud He Vav He, but by saying God and Lord, we obscure the fact that in the Hebrew, God has different proper names. And so the reason we obscure it is we believe that God is one. That has to be the case, that the proper names are just the different ways of saying the same thing. But the insight of the Castilian Kabbalah, the insight of the Zohar, and the thing that's contributed by the Zohar, besides being this great historical hinge, the synthesis of everything that went before and the groundwork for everything that comes after, is that the Zohar reflects an experiment, which is to say, we know that God is supposed to be one, but it's and we know that ultimately in the Hebrew Bible we have to bring it into terms of monotheism. But what if we relaxed that requirement? What if we decided that we're just going to read the Bible as it's written, not as common names for the same deity, but for different proper names for really different divine potencies, for different divine aspects, and to some degrees different divinities? That's to say, what would Judaism look like if it were less reasonable and monotheistic? And it was really sort of like unreasonable and polytheistic. What would a polytheistic reading of the Torah bring to us. And it turns out that with people who read the Zohar and who participate in this midrashic exercise, they find that um, they find that their sense of what the Torah is actually saying is heightened. That to read the Torah as it is written and to not hold the Torah up to a philosophical demand, it's a different work. It's a more powerful work in some ways. It's a more exciting work in some ways because you're putting on the table the fact that can be tensions within the divinity, that can be conflicts within in the divine, and religious life becomes the task of understanding those conflicts, and perhaps by our efforts doing exercises to unify and to remove those contexts. So that's sort of the background. I have a little chat from the Zohar to share with you. And that actually was half an hour. So that was extreme. That was a moment of rare discipline from the from the flight deck here. But before I take you through this actual text of the Zohar, that was an extremely quick thumbnail of a lot of history. I hope the main points were intelligible. But if there are basic questions about it or comments about it, let's just take a stop here and see what those issues and those comments are. So um, somebody writes, would some of the different versions be a loose attempt to reconcile Judaism with the spreading of Christianity during the Crusades? I I'm not sure if that was the intention, but many people accused the authors of the Zohar of doing precisely that. That they looked at it as a betrayal of they looked at it as a betrayal of the thing that they thought was most important about Judaism, which was the singularity of God, that God is monotheistic, and it was a concession to a worldview of Christianity, which they said there were, at least superficially, there are three. There are three potencies, and the Jewish opponents of Kabbalah would say, how did this happen? We had one and they had three, and now the Kabbalists come around and they have three and we have 10. I mean, we're losing it. I mean, our strength was that we're the monotheistic people, and you've betrayed us and you've given that all up. And so I don't and I don't know and I don't think it was the intention of the writers to reconcile it with Christianity, but the it I think that's it introduced that problem. What is monotheism and what is polytheism? In Christianity, they have to apologize. I don't think Christians really believe that they are polytheists. And they argue that, well, there's one God, but there's three aspects, and so you have one. The Kabbalists will say the same thing. There's one God, but there's 10 aspects. And so, but for both groups, it raises the question: well, what is really monotheism? What does that really mean? So that's is it the position of the Kabbalists that texts like the Zohar shortcut the process of learning through Pshat, Remez, Drash, and jump into Sod? So there in the Spanish Kabbalah, there was this fourfold idea of text that called Pardes, which Pshat, which means a simple level, Remez, which is allegory, a Drash, which is the rabbinic writing, and Sod, which is the secret. And it's a fourfold series, it's a fourfold ascent. And the Zohar does not, I mean, we'll see in the text we're doing, the Zohar fully embraces that full fourfold ascent, that's part of the way that it works. But the issue is that when you concentrate on the Sod, to the exclusion of the other ones. You have to answer the question, well, what do we need what do we need the first three for? If the sod is where it is, why can't you just start with the sod? That's not the goal of the Zohar to get people to do that, but it's an aspect of any time you say that a text is esoteric and that the meaning is esoteric, you have to answer the question, well, how much time do we want to waste doing the exoteric, doing the contextual meaning of the text? And that's not the goal of the Zohar, but that's a conflict that is raised by the Zohar. And somebody wrote the comment, Mi hamocha b'edim Adonai, Mi hamocha neta b'chodesh. Who is like you among the Lord? Who are you like among the other gods? And this comment points out that monotheism is not is not a value of the entire Hebrew Bible. When we study the development of the Hebrew Bible, we do the full thing. But the book of Deuteronomy assumes that there are other gods. We have our God, because it is the aspect of us, our faithfulness to our God is not denying that other gods exist. It's being faithful to the God who is faithful to us. And this is the technical term for this is henotheism, as opposed to monotheism. Henotheism is that there is one powerful God above the other gods. Which also you will hear if you come to shul this Saturday at this week. We sing the Song of the Sea this week. But it's so this is part of the it's part of the power of it's part of the power of the Zohar mysticism, that it reaches back beyond the layers of the Bible, like Second Isaiah, which are explicitly monotheistic. In Second Isaiah, it said explicitly, I'm the God and there's no one else. And but if you go behind that, if you try to plug that into the rest of the Bible doesn't make sense sometimes. And so if you put that assumption aside, that the Bible makes more sense. And a final comment before we go to the text. Um, did the Albigesinians get some of their ideas from the Zohar? I'm not sure who those people are, so I will I don't know who they are, so I don't know where they got their ideas. That's I will endeavor to look that up after the lecture and remedy my knowledge. I know a lot of things. I know a lot of things, but I don't know everything. So I just want to share a small piece of the text with you, and then we can talk about that and go on with so the garments of Torah, and this is a little text from the Zohar. Come and see, techazeh. The language of the Zohar is always a visual language. The Talmud is tashma, come and listen, come and think. And listening is probably the preferred modality in Judaism. That's a language of words. I don't tell my kids to imagine stuff. I'm not commanded to make my kids make a picture in their head. I'm commanded to get my kids to repeat words. But in the Zohar, it's visual. Tachazeh. There is a garment that's visible to all. When those fools see somebody in a good-looking garment, they look no further. Somebody just looks at the dress a woman is wearing, and they don't wonder about the woman. That's foolish. But the essence of the garment is the body. Without the body, the garment is not that interesting. And the essence of the body is the soul. So it is with Torah. She has a body. The commandments of the Torah are called the embodiment of the Torah, Gufei HaTorah. is the language of the Talmud. This body is clothed in garments, stories of this world. Fools of the world look only at that garment, at the story of the Torah. They know nothing more. They do not look at what is under the garment. And again, it's esoteric systems, whether you're talking about philosophical esotericism, whether you're talking about mystical esotericism, they're elite systems. So there are people that are in the know, and there are people that don't that aren't in the know. And you want to be the people that are that are in the know. Those who know more do not look at the garment. That if you really know what you're doing, you just don't look at the laws in the Torah. You just look at the stories, but you look at the body under the garment. Wise one, servants of the King on high, those who stood at Mount Sinai, look only at the soul, root of all real Torah. In the time they come, they are destined to look at the soul of Torah. That even and so the wise ones, the servants of the King on high, you might think that that's the closest thing you can see at God, but but they don't even see that well. So come and see. So it is above. There is a garment, body, soul, and the soul of soul. This is the fourfold ascent that Jeffrey was bringing to our attention. You start with the garment, you go to the soul, and you go from the garment to the body, from the body to the soul, and to the soul of the souls. That the souls that we have are not not just individual; that they connect to a higher soul. The heavens and their host are the garment. The assembly of Israel is the body. The Jewish people are the body who receives the soul, beauty of Israel. So she is the body of the soul. The soul that we have mentioned is beauty of Israel, real Torah. And the soul of the soul is the ancient one of days. This is the old man on the throne. This is the God that's inaccessible. All is connected, this one to that one. Woe to the wicked who say the Torah is merely a story. They look at the garment and no further. Happy are the righteous who look at Torah properly. As wine must sit in a jar, so Torah must sit in this garment. We look only at what is under the garment. All these words, all those stories are the garments. So my question to you would be, and this is I don't think it matters where you go to shul. You can go to shul at my shul. You can go to shul across the street most of the time. You could go to the shul on French Street. What is the Torah that we are looking at when we read the Torah on Saturday morning? We open up the book. It could be the stone Chumash across the street. It could be the Eitz Chaim Chumash in my shul. It could be the old Hertz Chumash. It could be the plot. I think it's Gutner Plot wrote the Chumash that's used in conservative synagogues. Well, what are in these books that you're reading along about? They're about the garments. They're about the stories. They're trying to understand the stories. They're trying to communicate to you the commandments. They are trying to give to congregants who have varying levels of Hebrew the ability to look at the jar, the thing that the Torah is in, and to describe that. But according to the Zohar, the jar, you have to have the jar. If you have wine, you have to have a cup to have the wine in. You can't throw the jar away if you want to keep wine. You have to. It has to have garments. But the attraction of mysticism to people who do it, and the thing that is in odds with just about every form of American or Judaism that's practiced in the world, that we are. I mean, we're focused at trying to explain the contextual level of Torah to our congregants. What happened in what order? Maybe there is a meaning to the story. Maybe there is and there are laws. Maybe there are ethical instructions in the prophets that we want to give. But to the Kabbalist, to the writers of the Zohar, these are just sideshows. These are just sideshows. This is just the jar, and learning about the jar, learning about the garments, is just the first step in the journey to going from the garment to the body, from the body to the soul, and to the soul of souls. And that's the ascent that's advertised by Kabbalah. I'm happy to study the jar. If I could figure out the jar, if I could learn something about the jar, that's a pretty good day for me. That's a pretty good day for me. But there are for those people that want to exert themselves and go beyond what I'm able to do or what I want to do. The Zohar is the Zohar is a path for that. And in our last class in particular, I'm going to give you some guides that if you are interested and wish to pursue the study of this in English, as I said, there are some fairly accessible tools to look at. We'll have in the next class we'll talk about the various controversies of the Zohar, how it's a large part of a major division in the Jewish world today is whether or not this is on the final exam. The Talmud is on the final exam. I got to know the Talmud. The Mishnah is on the final exam. Prophets and the Torah are on the final exam. Is the Zohar on the final exam? Is this something that we should be making room in our curricula for? Is this something that if can you is it really okay to do what I do and just say, well, this is neat, but I don't. I'm happy to sit under the books and enjoy the impenetrable shield of protection that they provide for me by existing in my office, and I'll take advantage of that. But it's not really in my wheelhouse to read them. So I will. I'd love to hear your questions and comments because I'm done talking. Okay. Um, we will then move forward. I hope everybody is enjoying the snow and everybody's staying warm. Um, from Edward, what about the Sphirot? We will so the Sphirot do not come from the Zohar. The idea of the Sphirot are the Sphirot are first defined as the 10 numbers in Sefer Yetzirah, which is a book that predates the Zohar. And originally, the Sphirot are part of number and alphabetic mysticism. That and that's why the number 32 is very important. There are 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. There are 10 digits on our fingers, and that adds up to 32. That's why Lag BaOmer, the 33rd day, is such a potent number. The chart that you see of the Sephirot, and I'll bring one next week that has like Keter on top, has God's shoulders. Um, it has a Teferet, the heart in the center, has the legs, has God's genitals, Yesod at the bottom. That chart of the Sphirot is not it utilizes concepts from the Castilian Kabbalah, and therefore would be part of the Zohar. But the chart is actually a Renaissance chart, I think, created by Christians who tried to study. I mean, the Kabbalah is taken up by Christians as well. And it goes back to Andrea's question: was this all a plot to try to draw people away? It's not a plot, but there's a tension because Kabbalah is universal. Kabbalah is there's a universalist aspect of Kabbalah that is appealing to Christians, and non-Jews end up playing a large part of Kabbalah. And I think it was ultimately non-Jews that created that chart of Sfirot that are so famous. But I'll bring that I'll bring that with me to the next time. Doesn't one of the prophets say, "Taste and see"? Yes, Hezkel. Yeah, Hezkel says that. Um, So that is all. I wish everyone a warm week, and I hope the snow misses us for a change this week. Take care. Shavua Tov.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
so-
Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Yes, thank you so much.
Let's see.
Did you? Clicks this off. Before it clicks this off.